News alert, we are just over 2 hours and 35 minutes away from a government shutdown, and the two parties have yet to reach an agreement that would forestall that event. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is expected to deliver remarks on the Senate floor very soon to update the nation on the status of those negotiations. Meanwhile, Democrats continue to use the Tea Party movement as a scapegoat for the budget mess. But my next guest begs to differ. Joining us now with reaction, South Dakota freshman Tea Party candidate, Congresswoman Kristi Noem. Congresswoman, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Sean. I appreciate it, too.
All right, so we got an early sneak peek, a little preview, if you will, of Chuck Schumer and the strategy of the Democrats. He was caught on a conference call, didn't know journalists were looking, used the word extreme, and those very words were used today by himself and by Dick Durbin. Here's what they said.
The Tea Party's trying to push through its extreme agenda, issues that have nothing to do with funding government. This is an extreme agenda that has nothing to do with a funding bill. The Tea Party cheers for a shutdown, and I mean that without any hyperbole. They're cheering for it literally.
This is no longer about the budget deficit, it's about bumper stickers. It's time for Speaker Boehner to acknowledge that we have an agreement. We are going to reduce the deficit for the remainder of this year, and he has to tell his Tea Party Rough Riders to put their horses in the barn.
Well, you're a well-known Tea Party candidate. What's your reaction to that?
Well, you know, it's apparent to me, and I think the entire country by now, that Harry Reid has been desperate for a shutdown. So, because the cuts that we proposed 7 weeks ago, 48 days ago almost exactly, was 2% of our budget. So, I don't think anybody would call 2% cuts to a budget extreme in some of the verbal language that he's been using. A lot of our states have had to go through a lot more than that to balance their budgets. The federal government by far has a lot of waste, a lot of duplicity, a lot of things we need to address. So to call that extreme just shows me that he's trying to politicize this, and he's doing it on the backs of our military, and he's doing it on the backs of every single family out there that's trying to make ends meet.
That's well said. You know, it's almost like the term Tea Party now is used as a pejorative. I got to be honest, I'm actually inspired. I'm energized by the fact that people are engaged, that they understand that record debt and deficit puts our country's future in jeopardy, and they're saying all these things about the Tea Party. Now, I was getting a little worried that Republicans might be caving. How important is it to you, because this is important to me, that the whole $61 billion, that Republicans be willing to shut the government down if the Democrats cannot cut $61 billion of a $3.6 trillion budget?
I think it's extremely important to me that every time that I've got a bill in front of me that cuts spending, that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we get those to be as big a cuts as possible. You know, I'm a farmer and a rancher. I've been running businesses, served in my state legislature. I'm just like everybody else back in South Dakota and across this country that, you know, you watch that discussion you had earlier, it all seems so silly. And you can see very easily why it's 2 hours before the deadline and we're still arguing up here at the Capitol. We absolutely, the American people deserve better, and I hope we deliver that and that we make sure that we're responsible and we make those cuts. Because we've got to get our country back on the right track.
There were rumors earlier today that the number may come in somewhere around the $40 billion mark. If that's the case, would you vote for it, or would you feel that that's too little?
Well, you know, I would feel it's too little, but I certainly think that we absolutely need to consider any bill that Speaker Boehner has fought for, because that man has fought. He has heard our conference. He recognizes the fiscal path that we're on, and he realizes we're running out of time. You know, we're simply talking about families that we're putting them in the situation where we're going to have high inflation, devalue our dollar, our future is going to be not very stable.
If the Republicans won't hold the line on $61 billion, because I really like Paul Ryan's budget, which is $6.2 trillion, which is where the real money is. And I think there's going to be a real fight. Look, if the Democrats are out there suggesting that Republicans want to kill women and bomb innocent civilians and deny women cancer screenings over $61 billion, I can only imagine the rhetoric ratcheted up over $6.2 trillion. In that sense, in principle, isn't it important to tell the Democrats they're not going to be held hostage over this threat to shut down the government?
Yeah, I hope that every American is remembering all the rhetoric from this week and remembering how they fought to spend more money, to put more debt on this country, because in 2012, we absolutely have to win that Senate, and we have to have a president that wants to make the tough decisions and actually lead in these circumstances, and we do not have that, and that's what we need to fix this country. We absolutely need to have some leadership out of the Senate and the president, because they're holding us back, and they're doing it on the backs of our people.
Congresswoman, is there any number where if it comes in below this number in terms of actual cuts that you can no longer support the bill?
Sean, I'm looking for spending cuts and making those numbers as big as possible. So my speaker's been fighting for me. He certainly knows how I feel, and I've been pushing him, and everybody in the conference has. He has the experience. He's the negotiator, and we're going to see what he comes up with.
All right, and thank you so much, Congresswoman. Appreciate you being with us. And coming up, all eyes are on Washington, D.C. tonight as last-minute negotiations to prevent a government